Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for December 2025. Here we are at the end of the year. Let's see if Humble Choice ends 2025 with a bang, or more of a fizzle. As always, let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games, and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. First up, we have a particularly macabre game, Godlike Burger, which answers the question of what if you were running a restaurant in Overcooked, but feeding your customers other customers. So yeah, at a glance, this is going to feel a lot like Overcooked. Customers will arrive and queue up orders while you, the chef, are left trying to make them. You have to juggle a variety of tasks to get the ingredients together, cook the burgers, plate them up, and ring the bell when the order is ready. If you do all this well and don't mess up anything, then the customers will be happy, leave a tip, and your restaurant gets prestige points. Completing planet-specific quests and reaching certain prestige levels can unlock new planets to serve at that will, presumably, bring greater challenge and complexity. However, that's not the only thing you need to do. In between runs, you can buy upgrades for yourself in your kitchen. Additionally, you could restock on ingredients, pay the bills to keep the lights on, and bribe the police? Yes, bribe the police. You'll need them to look the other way at times because the only thing you can't restock through purchasing ingredients is the meat itself. Instead, you need to source your meat from the customers themselves, but you have to be clever about it. Kill them when no one is around, but be careful not to make too much of a mess or be noisy because this attracts suspicion of other patrons. Additionally, you can set up traps to help you do your dirty work, but at the end of the day, the customers need to eat. Well, unless they're dead. Then they need to be eaten. So it's grim work, but someone has to do it. Anyway, I found this to be rather hectic to play, but I get that this is exactly what it's going for. It was fun, but I don't know if I'd return to play this game. I think if it had multiplayer, then it would make it much more appealing, but it doesn't, which is really a missed opportunity. That said, it's unique enough that it's worth a shot if you thought it sounded interesting. In a somewhat similar vein to the last game, but a completely different setting and theme, is Beholder Conductor. Apparently, it's part of a franchise that I actually didn't know anything about, where you are essentially spying on people for a totalitarian state. In this game, you take on the role of a conductor. This means you need to make sure that you're checking your passengers' tickets for any discrepancies with government-issued papers. Additionally, you need to take care of your passengers, providing for their needs, and setting up each of their cars to be accommodating. However, as a government-sanctioned conductor, you also can't forget your duty to the state. In addition to your duties, you can spy on the passengers by peeping on them to catch them doing things that they aren't supposed to, or taking it one step further and rummaging through their luggage. Any new information you find can be sent to the government to create better character profiles on each of their citizens. However, if you do catch them in violation of a directive, then you can report them and increase your authority. Or maybe just ask the passenger for a bribe not to report them. Your choice. Learning about the stories of the different passengers was interesting and neat to see how certain pieces came together. I thought the gameplay was a bit crazy like the last game, but there were more moments of downtime to give yourself a break. There also was a pause button if you needed some extra time to read through things. I quite enjoyed this and would like to continue playing this further. Dungeon Tycoon is, yeah, you guessed it, a tycoon management game. Players have to build a dungeon and keep pesky adventurers out. But not really. Yes, you're building a dungeon, but you're actually supposed to keep the adventurers happy. And don't kill them too much, because if you do, then they'll get upset and it has a negative impact on your dungeon.
You serious?
If that's your reaction as well, then yeah, I got nothing. It almost feels like they wanted to make an amusement park tycoon game, and then decided midway through development to pivot slightly so they can make it unique. The adventurers even pay an admission ticket, for crying out loud. In these dungeons, players need to build rooms, decorate them, set up monster spawners, place lootable objects, make potion vending machines, all for the enjoyment of the adventurers. It's an odd premise, but sure, okay, I guess we'll roll with it. Unfortunately, I didn't feel the gameplay held up at all. Your development of your dungeon gets quickly stunted, and I found myself fast-forwarding at the fastest speed to get through the day just to get paltry gold. Then use it to buy a couple things, if that, and repeat the process. I felt like I was staring at the screen waiting for the days to finish just so that I could try to modify things. I was completing new tech, but all the research in the world means nothing if I can't afford anything I unlock. I found this game pretty boring, and it was actually kind of hard to get through my hour with it. February's dungeon management game felt far better, and I'd recommend going back to that over this one if you happen to own it. For some, Intravenous II will be a fun top-down stealth game where careful patience and quick thinking is king. For others, like myself, it's not my cup of tea. We've had a few of these given over the years, and every time I want to like the game because I appreciate the level of immersion that's put in, but every time it just never clicks with me. I'd say the biggest deal breaker for me is the true top-down perspective. I never liked it and very seldomly play a game for any amount of time that has this perspective, unless it's Darkwood. That aside, there's also the difficulty curve, and that's really just on me. The game opens with the message stating that this is meant to be a hard game. It doesn't hold your hand, but it gives the players plenty of options as to how to approach each mission. There are 2 campaigns in the game following different characters, and in both starter missions, I wasn't able to complete either in my time with it. All it takes is one mistake and everything can go south. Firefights, which seem to be the absolute last resort option, are tense and quick. I found it difficult to track my health because once guns started firing, I'd be dead. Stealth has a lot of different options. You can go prone behind cover like bushes, turn off the lights and then use night vision to pick people off, or even crawl through vents. Both levels seem to have a lot of different ways to approach it, which I think fans of this style of game will appreciate. As with the other games we've gotten like this, I see the appeal here, but I don't see myself coming back to it. Lost Skies brings a rather familiar survival crafting formula, but sets it in a somewhat unique setting. Yeah, there is a loft, and solar punk on the horizon, and even Boss's previous game that they shut down, Worlds Adrift. But even still, it's kinda unique from other games like it on the market. Right away, I thought the game was beautiful, if a tad bit unoptimized as I did get some stuttering. However, after tweaking some settings, I felt that the game ran alright. There's some level of story here, but it's all largely meaningless to me right now. Apparently, something happened to the world and you woke up on some crash-landed ship. And now floating islands are everywhere. Or something like that. Exploring these islands is a treat though. Especially once you get things like the glider, although, yawn, we've seen that before. The grappling hook, on the other hand, is amazing and clearly a lot of time was spent perfecting the physics of this thing. It became incredibly satisfying as I started learning how to grapple more effectively and pairing it with the glider. However, it doesn't end there, as one of the main selling points of the game is the ability to build your own airship. Then use it and sail around to explore other islands, which sounds amazing. I didn't quite get that far in my hour with it, but I had good first impressions. I definitely want to return to this in the future and play it in co-op with my wife. Beat 'em ups is another genre that I never really gravitated towards, and honestly didn't expect much from Streets of Rage 4. So it came to a great surprise to find that I really enjoyed the game a lot. Without having played any one beat 'em up game that seriously, I can't really compare this modern rendition of the game compared to the old ones. But what I can say is that the gameplay is exactly as you'd expect. You move through linear levels and fight your way through tons of enemies. You can punch, jump, pick up weapons, and use all that to beat the living crap out of anyone who gets in your way. Or alternatively, you could be the one getting beaten to a pulp. Luckily, the game offers a bunch of difficulty levels to open up the accessibility. There are a variety of characters with more to unlock. Each of the ones I played felt different and was fun to play. Additionally, I only played the story mode, but there seems to be a bunch of other modes for those who really enjoy the game. And yeah, there is a story, but it's not much of one, which I think is completely expected. Luckily, the game also delivers with great art direction and fighting animations, along with solid gameplay as mentioned. I think this is a good game to return to whenever I'm looking for something completely different from what I normally play, and probably a great game for those who are fans of the genre.
お前らも今回り道すりゃ無事に帰れる。さもなきゃこれから起きることは全部お前らの選んだ結果だ。
Another year and another Yakuza game. Sure, it doesn't have the same name since Ryuga Gotoku Studio wanted the name to match the Japanese name, which is Ryuga Gotoku, aka Like a Dragon, but it's still a Yakuza game. In this Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, we're back to playing as the famous, or infamous, Kazuma Kiryu. This time around, he's essentially erased his identity and now works for the Daidoji, some sort of criminal organization that isn't the Yakuza? I'll be honest, I have no idea. While I'm fairly certain you could brute force your way through the story to try and get a handle on what's going on, it's obviously going to be smoother if you have the background from previous games in the series. And this is a series that I've been meaning to get to, yet I say that every year when we get another Yakuza game. One of these days, I will play them, I swear. Anyway, I completely expected to not get to do much in my hour with this game because that's usually what happens. There's a lot of talking, and maybe you get to play a tutorial fight and walk around for a bit. Yes, there is a lot of talking to set things up, but I feel like this is probably the best paced introduction since I've started playing these in Humble Choice reviews. There was a good amount of action to break up the talking, and there's a good chunk of background to explain Kiryu's situation as well as setting up the overall plot conflict. Once again, the writing does a good job to make me interested in playing the game. And as always, I do want to return to this, but after I actually get around to playing through the rest of them. Which, well, we'll see next year if that actually happens when we inevitably receive another Yakuza game. The headliner for the month is Nine Souls, a Souls-like Metroidvania. You play as Yi, a once-defeated warrior who somehow is resurrected and now seeks vengeance. The game's setting boasts an interesting blend of East Asian influence mixed with sci-fi elements. Have to say, I was pretty surprised to find this small village ritual included a giant alien construct ripping off people's heads. Nine Souls takes inspiration from Sekiro's combat as stated on their Steam page, and it's clearly visible that you will be parrying a lot. Luckily, I felt the parry windows were generous enough to not feel like you need millisecond precision timing, but at the same time challenging enough that you would need to learn parry windows from various enemies and bosses. Or when not to parry if they're using a crimson attack. Yi also has a talisman that could be placed on enemies and charged to explode, which was pretty satisfying. However, in order to recharge this ability, you need to parry. So it all comes back to that. This actually reminded me a lot of Grime, which we received in June 2023. Could have sworn we got that last year. Anyway, that game also had a lot of parry gameplay, but I felt the story was a bit too abstract for my taste. I much like the narrative direction of Nine Souls, and visuals if I might add, over Grime, and I'm definitely interested in returning to this at some point. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, and subscribe if you want to see more video game coverage in the form of reviews, first impressions, and of course these Humble Choice videos every month. And if you happen to watch this in its first week, then please give the video a hype as well if you found it helpful. Overall, this is a solid month. I mean, subjectively speaking, I think this bundle has a few games that I don't really care about playing post-review. However, objectively speaking, I could see why many would enjoy playing those said games. That aside, I think there's a good variety of decent stuff here that most will probably find a few they like, even if the bundle as a whole isn't as tempting. One last thing before I get to the recommendations, be sure to check out my year-end review that I'll release sometime before the end of the month, and also, happy holidays. Thank you for all your support over the past year. Anyway, for the must-play section this month, I actually don't have anything this time around. That doesn't mean the bundle is bad, because, yeah, it's not. There just wasn't anything that stood out to me where I felt like I really wanted to continue playing right away. For my strong recommendations, I've placed 9 Souls, Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, Streets of Rage 4, Lost Skies, and Beholder Conductor. 9 Souls feels like a solid Souls-like Metroidvania, and with a very polished combat system. I could see The Man Who Erased His Name as a must-play. Sorry, King Link, if you're watching. But as I'm unfamiliar with the franchise, it's really hard to say that from an hour where this lands. First impressions were really good though. Streets of Rage 4 surprised me with fun and cathartic gameplay where you don't need to worry about anything other than smashing buttons, at least on the difficulty I played on. Lost Skies brought familiar survival crafting gameplay to a unique and inviting world. I think this game has potential for being a must-play, but since I didn't get to try out the Skyship gameplay, I was really hesitant to place it higher. Finally, Beholder Conductor did a good job blending task management with, well, I guess being a complete creep in a totalitarian regime. I hadn't played anything quite like it, and look forward to seeing how the story develops. In my week recommendations, I placed Godlike Burger and Intravenous II. Both of these games I don't see myself returning to, but I definitely see why people would like them. Godlike Burger takes on the Overcooked formula and adds on their own unique spin of turning it into a murder restaurant where you probably don't want to know what that mystery meat actually is. It was a very hectic game with tons to manage, and I simply don't want to be bothered doing all that without a multiplayer co-op buddy. Intravenous II seems like a game that had a lot of love put into it to create an immersive tactical stealth action game. However, that level of detail paired with the top-down perspective doesn't really jive with me. But again, I understand why this would be a gem to some. Finally, in my Don't Bother With section is Dungeon Tycoon. I still can't get over the fact that I'm not really meant to kill the adventurers and have to make sure they're happy. Feels like it would be better to make an infamous dungeon that has claimed the lives of many adventurers but has tons of rewards for those willing to brave the terrors. Couple that disjointed theme with the less than stellar gameplay, and yeah, it's a no thanks for me. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and happy holidays.